a lot of people today, they don't really want it, you know? They don't really want it. Like, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I would also sometimes like escape to her house, her mom's house. And I was also buying groceries for them with my small 6,000, you know, and it made me feel like such a man, and I didn't want to let that go. Yeah. And funny enough, like, you know, my dad was like, listen, this is some BS. I'm not trying to have like my kid work in a club. So if you're going to be a man, you're going to look after yourself. And then he cut me off. And I think
was that initial punch, if I can say?
It is exactly what I needed.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that answer. I like your mindset.
Like, he changed my life indirectly. He sped it up. I was a kid until that moment, until he was like, well, if you want to be a man about your own stuff. The thing is, like, we're so naive to what's wrong and not naive to what's right. Like, we don't want to open our ears for the right things. It's not even talking just spiritual things, even just sound financial advice. Like, why do we have like 21-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds trying to buy a Gucci bag? You understand? That's 20,000. What are you doing? You don't have no investment account. You want to buy a Gucci bag. You don't have no savings. You want to buy a Gucci bag. Some people don't even have a couch and they have a Gucci bag. That's crazy.
Today's conversation isn't about labels. It's about identity. It's about building your own name when expectations already exist around you. Shama Veyi, also known as Shama is Shama, is a successful club promoter, a super promoter, as he calls himself, a father, and someone who chose an unconventional path according to the society he came from. Today, we're talking about living for yourself, deciding for yourself, entrepreneurship, fatherhood, faith, growth, and writing your own story. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Shama is Shama. There we go.
Shout out.
Bro, I've been doing this since 2019, and I've always wanted to share your story because it's something that I always found was interesting and intriguing. You know, but before we carry on, I want to say that this episode is sponsored by Dr. Naomi Mukendi, the greatest dentist of all time. She's done work on him, done work on me, done work on Jennifer behind the scenes there. And if you would like some dental help, whether it's veneers, crowns, braces, whatever, she will be in the link down below. So as I was saying, I've been wanting to do this for a very long time, and thank you for the honor and the opportunity for saying yes.
Appreciate it.
We're here to share your story and, you know, shed light on some of the things that you've done. So straight into it.
Of course.
Who is Shama when the lights are off and the music stops and everything? Who is that person?
I think for those who really know me, you'll know that it doesn't really change when the lights go off. I've never been somebody who wants to impress. And I think that's like the biggest thing I'm proud of. You know, I don't look to impress. That's Shama, authentic to himself. It took me a while to get here. Like, I didn't grow up like this. But I had to get here because I was tired of external influences. I feel like external influences makes you extremely miserable. So who I am is someone who's very, I don't want to say self-centered, but focused on himself. You know, I stick to my own lane. I'm a chilled guy. Look, I go off, but it's never unprovoked. It's never unprovoked.
I hear that.
But even in that, I think it goes very with who I am, just in being true to myself, you know, expressing myself when I can. I'm an amazing father, I think. There's always room for improvement, but I do think my son feels loved, and I think that matters. Very good at my job.
Very.
You know, probably the best in the country.
Super promoter.
Just waiting for someone to challenge me, you know. It's a message for all the guys out there. If you are a promoter, hit me up, you know. But we know that's not going to happen.
You know, you're second born of 5, but you're the first boy.
Yeah.
I want to know, how did you navigate that pressure? Because you've just spoken now about deviating from those external stuff.
Yes.
So how did you navigate that as the firstborn son, which in an African context is like a big thing? So I can relate. So
yeah. I mean, I had to accept that I am a firstborn son. I'm also named after my dad and after my grandfather. So it was like predestined that I was going to carry the weight of the family. It was never something that people were trying to put on me externally. I just knew. I mean, when I saw my name, I was like, okay, cool. This one is a little personal. And that's why my son also has my name. so that he also knows that like that same pressure is on him, the internal one, not the one that people force on you, but the one where you want to see your family get better.
Yeah.
So I forgot your question.
That was it. You answered it. Perfect question. Yeah.
Wonderful.
You navigated the pressures by just focusing and accepting
Yeah.
the pressures there.
Yeah.
But now today you're not letting those pressures get to you unless it's yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And shout out to my dad for always reminding me of what I always knew. And despite our clashes, he always knew that like you're the one that's going to handle this. And since I was young, and I always knew, that's why I didn't really care what I did. I think that's one of the reasons why I had to show them that I will look after everyone in my own way. You know, I mean, I went really left, not too left.
To who?
According to the society we grew up in.
Fairs.
Do you understand what I mean?
Fairs,
I don't know a single Congolese promoter before us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I knew one. You understand? I don't know if I should say his name.
You can't, dog. I don't know.
Papa Leon, you know.
I don't know him, no.
He had a spot. I had a spot in, what was it? Was it Rivonia?
Mm-hmm.
It was called Sankai, or one of those joints.
Every
you know?
Congolese person knows that joint.
Yeah, like I don't know if he was a promoter or an owner there, but I met him there, you know. But outside of that, like there was really nobody, you know, and it was really like stepping into like dark territory. But I think that was what made it so interesting. Like it was because it was the unknown, but who even really knows anything?
Exactly,
like when you go into corporate, like what do you even know? You can't guarantee this is what you'll become. We found out that like most people change careers like 6 or 7 times throughout their life. You wanted to be an economist, now you're an engineer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So who even really knows? So it goes back to your point, like according to who, but according to the societal pressure. That's the answer.
Oh, I see.
What people tell you is normal and what isn't normal.
Yeah.
Like who tell you like, yeah, no, you're a nightclub promoter. I don't think anyone will tell you that's normal. But when it works out in your favor, thank God, everyone's eyes open like,
oh, it's possible.
You know?
Yeah.
Now you're not a drunkard anymore. Now you're just like, oh.
You're a businessman.
You're a businessman. And you know who kind of like, he doesn't even know he did it, but he gave me like the motivation I needed. I don't know if you remember Papa Mulumba.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Papa Mulumba, once we had a conversation, I was like,
That's
dude,
deep.
I hate what I do. I hate what I study. And he was like, why? I'm like, I don't think it's going to make me money. He says, what's going to make you money? I said, maybe if I did something like economics and whatever. He said, okay, do you want to Google how much those guys make? I said, okay, I'll check it out. And he says, yeah. And do me another favor. Google the best ping pong player in the world. And I Googled him on the spot. And that guy had signed, I think it was a $3 million Nike deal. Some Japanese oak. And he was like, there you go. He says, like, no matter what you do, if you're the best at it, you'll get paid.
I like that.
Yeah.
Ooh. But before we get into it, what do most people, or what do people misunderstand about you?
They associate my industry with my character. I think a lot of people look at you and say, oh, you're outside all the time. You must be X, Y, Z. I think a lot of people don't give it a chance because they come with so many presumptions about me, you know. I'm conceited. I don't talk to people. I wouldn't show up to their weddings, you know, stuff like that.
Man. But let's talk about building and growing your lane, you know, the entrepreneur. Like, when was the very first party, like that party that you went to that said to you, I think I want to do this thing for real, for real? Because there's that one, you know, defining moment. When was yours?
It was actually on campus. I never knew I was going to go into like the nightclubs. I did know I wanted to do events. So one of my boys, Fez Iletlamini, shout out to him, he's pushing a huge like green scooter movement. Like he's pushing like, like a South African brand pushing like these like e-scooters. I don't know if you've seen them.
I don't mind bringing him here and sharing his thing, man.
Yeah, bro. He's like a Zulu Elon Musk.
Shout out.
Crazy.
I'm going to check him out.
Yeah, Fez Lamini.
All right.
And he came to me and he was like, look, bro, you're so good at gathering people. Because we used to like hang out on campus and just chill out and, you know, by the grass and whatever. He says, what if we like try to monetize this? I said, okay. He says, yeah, let's do this event together. And I said, okay, let's try it out. And we had like a little trial thing at the squash courts by the UJ squash courts. And it was packed. At that time, packed is relative, you know, it's like 50 people, 60 people around there. But in that space, it takes like 20 people. So you can imagine how many people were there.
Packed,
We sold out all their stock. It was crazy. Everyone was having a good time. This guy was like, maybe we should try escalate this. I said, okay. And we had one in some venue in Bram, you know. And we had for our first event, we had about 400 or 500 people. Which is like not bad. It's really good, even in today's terms, you know. And we had just overshot a lot of things like costs. You know, we were new to this. We didn't know how things worked, you know. And some money got lost along the way, and it kind of discouraged us in that direction. But him and I had tried this out in 2012. We had booked Anati, we had booked some venue in Bram, we had gang people, we had food stalls, things were moving. We even did a second one, you know? And that's when I realized like, maybe I could do something about this. And coincidentally, around that same time, I got spotted by Larry Ngaba.
Laryngitis, right?
Laryngitis, yeah, from the Reps. And he spotted me on campus and he's like, yo, would you try this at... it was called Harem back in the days.
Yeah. I used to see X Twitter.
Yeah.
It's taking us back, eh? Yo.
And it was so it was such a shock for me because how was I going to explain it? That's all I had to know. How was I going to explain?
That's a great question. Yo, that's a great question.
And I remember I said I was going to just sneak out first. But now you're too good at what you do. They want you for more nights. You can't explain why you're out 3 nights a week. You can explain 1, you can't explain 3. It can't be someone's birthday every day. And you know, my parents, a lot of people also think my parents were like hyper, like strict and like, you know, they were very understanding to a certain degree. My dad just didn't want things where he didn't understand. So if I told him, no, we're doing X, we're doing Y, and I'll be back at Z, he'll wait for me at Z. And he will only reprimand me if I'm not back, according to what I had told him. Right, not that he was trying to micromanage my life, you know. And it took me a while to understand it about him. But, you know, when you're young, you're stubborn.
Yes, sir.
So I was sneaking around. And then I had to tell them because I was like, yo, I want to earn from this, you know.
Deep.
And I was making like $500 a night. This was like, what, 15? 500 Rand a night. But if you put it together, it was like $6,000, you know? It was something I was putting in
That's
groceries.
multiple nights a week, from what, Wednesday to Sunday? Or
No, it
Thursday?
was just Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
So it was like a young 6K, you know? And I remember I used to take taxis after the club.
4 ways. From
Rosebank.
Jeez.
Rosebank. Sometimes I take the Gautrain, you know? Like, a lot of people today, they don't really want it, you know? They don't really want it. Like, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I would also sometimes like escape to her house, her mom's house. And I was also buying groceries for them with my small 6,000, you know, and it made me feel like such a man, and I didn't want to let that go. Yeah. And funny enough, like, you know, my dad was like, listen, this is some BS. I'm not trying to have like my kid work in a club. So if you're going to be a man, you're going to look after yourself. And then he cut me off. And I think
was that initial punch, if I can say?
It is exactly what I needed.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that answer. I like your mindset.
Like, he changed my life indirectly. He sped it up. I was a kid until that moment, until he was like, well, if you want to be a man about your own stuff. I said, okay, cool. No, that's fair, you know? And that's when I started bringing groceries, whatever. And then sometimes I'd work late on a Saturday and I wouldn't wake up in time for church because I'm back home like 7 a.m. because I'm taking taxis and, you understand, it's taking me long to get home.
Yeah.
Yo. And then I was sleeping and then he was just like, he didn't like that. It started upsetting him.
All our parents didn't like us missing church. You're not the only one.
Yo. And you know, the older I get, the more I get it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like I was saying, when you're young, you're just so stubborn. I don't know what the stubbornness that comes with youth, you know?
Naivety.
Like, the thing is, like, we're so naive to what's wrong and not naive to what's right. Like, we don't want to open our ears for the right things. It's not even talking just spiritual things, even just sound financial advice.
Yeah.
Like, why do we have like 21-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds trying to buy a Gucci bag? You understand? That's 20,000. What are you doing? You don't have no investment account. You want to buy a Gucci bag. You don't have no savings. You want to buy a Gucci bag. Some people don't even have a couch and they have a Gucci bag.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You know what I mean? And like our parents are trying to teach us that, like, listen, don't give in to all these things. I just don't think they knew how to say it.
I think from where they came from,
Yeah.
how it was given to them, and that's what they knew. So now us here today with our own children, I can't believe I just said that. It's like now we know better how to communicate to them because of what we had experienced, you know. So when he was getting upset at you missing church or sleeping in, how did you guys navigate that?
It was rough patches. He was trying his best to not be too annoyed at me, but I could see he was struggling, because you can imagine, like, you're preaching against the very thing and your child is doing that. How do you explain that? Are you selling? That's how the congregation would take it. Like, are you trying to tell us like your doctrine is not sound? You know what I mean?
Complex,
Complex, you know. And I think also that, like, over the years, it taught him that you can say the right thing, but it's not you that does the convincing. It's the Holy Spirit. Do you understand? You're just a messenger. Who receives it, who doesn't, that's not on you. And a lot of people like to prepare things because they want to be the messenger. That's not the point. You could sit on this mic stuttering the entire time, but your story in itself is going to touch the very person it's required to touch. You know? And I'm drifting. Where were we?
No, like you were talking about how you and your father had to navigate.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's preaching something and then you living.
Exactly. I'm living like a totally different life. And it was clashes. And then we had like a very big internal fight between my dad and I. And that day I decided that I'm going to take this. I had like, 7,800 in my account. I said, I'm going to take the 7.8 and I'm leaving. Now I'm checking property for 24. I'm checking, what are the other one?
I forgot, bro.
Pam Golding.
Yes. Thief and all of
Thief.
Yeah.
I'm on all of them saying I'm going to get a place. But if you've ever been property hunting, you know that 7.8 is not getting you anyway. First of all, you need a deposit. And this is 2017. I'm what, 20?
I was 21, so 25, 26.
25. Oh, and also like there was a slight thing that happened, you know. My dad wasn't, him and I were cool because for some time I had quit because I was seeing someone. Right, so I was seeing this girl who was like, she has a big problem with me being in the clubs. And I'm like, that's so crazy. I met you there, but okay, no problem. I liked her. She was cute. You know what I mean? I said, okay, let's try kick it, you know? And we're trying to kick it. And the very girl who asked me to stop going to the club was shaming me for not having money.
And that's where the money came from.
You know what I mean? Now I'm just like, dude. And then I remember once, like, I was so awkward in the relationship. I did something I would never do normally. And I've never done it before. I'll never do it again. But I called my girlfriend's ex-boyfriend on the spot. I got his number. I got his Instagram handle by going through her followers, which is pretty crazy, I know. But I went through like about 800 people to find this guy. And I found this because I remember she mentioned his name once. And then I DM'd him. I said, give me your number. Let me phone you. I'm sure he got the shock of his life. He was like, what? And then I called him. It was in the middle of the night. We ended up talking on the phone for 3.5 hours, me and this guy. You know, and at the end I told him, I said, I understand why she likes you. I think you need to take your woman back because I want nothing to do with this lady.
That's deep, bro. And
I broke up with her and I wanted nothing to do with her for about like a couple of years. And I'll fast forward, I'll go back to her, but I'll go back to where I was with my dad. And then now I was at home and I was miserable. I said, no. I told my dad, you know what? I'm going to go out. Okay, when you're going to fight, I'm going to handle myself as a man. And that upset him. And then we had internal fights. And I said, I'm taking my 7.8. I'm leaving. And I didn't find any way to stay. And I said, let me get creative. I check on Airbnb, right? I'm finding these places that are like 600 Rand, you know, a night.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah, so if you calculate it to a month, you're looking at like 18K. But I said, like, if I could convince them, right, to give me a 50% discount if I stay for 6 months, would they take it? Because they're guaranteed they're not going to make that much business. I sent the lady an email. She responded. She said, call me. I phoned her. She thought I was a scam or something. She heard my accent. She said, okay, he's not a criminal. We went to Link there. She said, come see the place. I saw the place with Win. And then Win is my younger brother. We saw the place. I was like, I like it. She's like, okay, so you are going to commit to 6 months here. I said, guaranteed. And back then in Airbnb, you couldn't do it. So she was blocking off the bookings for 6 months.
Yeah, on the back end, yeah.
On the back end. And then I was just paying them directly. And she was like, okay, I'll take it. Lovely British couple. They had 3 kids. She had 2, but then she was pregnant with 1. They were amazing. And I was like a big brother to them. And staying there was an absolute life changer. You know, it made me like realize that you got to be independent as a man if you want what you want.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's not just about going in this industry. It's about your choices in general. The person you choose to marry, the place you choose to live in. Everyone's going to have an opinion.
True.
But making you a man is about saying like, you know what, nah, I hear all of that, but let me block that out. Let me find time with my creator and let me find time with myself so that I can figure out this inner will. And it's at that place that I found all of that. It was fantastic. Sure.
That's where you got to become Shama is Shama. So what does a club promoter actually do? They still not talk about events. We know about events. Everyone can post an event. But what does a club promoter do? And we know your working days, because booking this episode took me a while because I wanted to do it this day, but that day. So it's just like, what do you guys do and when?
So a nightclub promoter, basically, you are helping the club gain street cred, marketing value, you know? And you also do that by bringing in artists, hosts, DJs, girls, spenders, you know what I mean? Bringing them actually the foot traffic. That's essentially what a promoter does. You come to a space, you take some of their money and utilize it to construct a culture around that space. Yeah. But I've shifted from that. I moved on more to consulting. So it's basically being a promoter, but on the back end, not needing to be there per se. Because that's exhausting. You know what I mean? Like when you have to actually show up and you need to call everybody and you need to put your face there and then you need to be there and people are bored if you're not like entertaining them. It's a drag. Yeah, so we're basically like the marketing and the brains behind the events at a club.
So when you say we, who is it? Do you have a team? Is it by yourself?
Yeah, I got a team.
How does it work? Do they answer to you or are you collaborating? Like how does it work?
Well, it depends where I work, right? There's various deals. Both are very possible. I've been at places where they were just booking me directly. I've been at other places where I was building the entire team. I prefer doing the entire team. I've actually let go of me, myself. I would prefer building a team, you know. I've got my OG, Maria, Mars. I've even got a tattoo of Mars here.
That's deep.
Yeah, so it looks like a moon, right? It's actually a sketch of planet Mars for Maria because she's really carried me through a lot, you know. I've got my sister, I call them my sisters, Nikki Weshako. She's literally helping me now in place of where Maria was, because Maria is doing her own thing. No beef or whatever. She's just found somewhere that's a lot solid for her. Because I'm all over the show. I don't know if you've noticed. I work at like...
Yeah. Freelance, if I can say.
Yeah, like I'll be somewhere for 6 months and then I'll go next door and then I'll try somewhere else. And, you know, I wanted to be a player of the game. I didn't want to work at anywhere specific. Yeah. And I have Kumo. He's more like my on-the-ground guy. He deals with like the girls. He deals with what's new. He's young, you know, he's like 23. Yeah. And I have a lot others. If I have to mention, I've got like 26 people under my stable.
I've seen you travel as well to Cape Town. So like, what's the long-term vision about the Shama Media House, I think it's called?
Yeah.
What's the long-term, like, where do you want to take it?
So CIS we've started a new division called the Midnight Bureau. That is essentially going to be we're a management company. We're managing hosts, promoters, and DJs. CIS will will focus more on agency work, which is like promoting for brands. you understand? Like, I don't know if you saw some of the stuff I did with Jägermeister. Stuff like that. Yeah. We'll be doing stuff like that with CIS. And then the Midnight Bureau will be the ones that will be outsourcing a DJ, outsourcing a host, outsourcing a promoter. So you can then only book like a desired individual. But if you book CIS, everyone's on board. Yeah.
That's so smart, bro.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest risk you then taken in this industry?
Oh, sure. There's something that, I don't know, you heard when I was on the call. There's something that I can't announce just yet, you know. Yeah. If you give me 3 weeks, you'll see the announcement. It's going to be the biggest risk, but the biggest reward.
Of course, yeah.
It's going to be the first time ever for someone my age, let alone a Congolese my age. It's going to be revolutionary.
We will be there.
Game changer.
We will be there.
I don't know if you'll be there, but
I mean, not at the event, but we will be there to see and, you know, support from afar. Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know if those are your spaces, you know?
Not really.
Yeah, but it's going to be something.
We do have an event called the Acoustics Africa where we just provide a platform to unseen and unsigned musical talent. We do have after parties and stuff, but at that time, I'm there. I like a good time.
Yeah.
But I'm just in the corner. I like to let the team do the work and I focus on the artist. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's going to be next level, you know? CIS is also running there's several events. I've got my Bad Neighbors event. It's like a house party series. So we're currently in discussions with one of my boys, a Nigerian. We'll be collaborating on an event soon. And then I'm trying to buy equity in one of my friends' events. So those will be like my 3 event properties. So it'll be like the event properties, it'll be the brand work, and it'll be the agency. Yes, but all of this will be funded by this new project that I'm working on. I just can't announce it.
Of course. You're doing well, eh? Like, I feel like you're doing well, in my opinion.
It's tough.
Of course, nothing comes easy, you know.
It's tough.
Yeah, but we've spoken about, you know, the work and stuff. We've spoken about your father. Now I want to talk about you being a father. You became a father pretty young. How did you, navigate that? How did it change your mindset?
Pretty young. What? I think I was 28. Is that young?
I'm 30. And I just became one. If you didn't know, now you know, guys.
I think 28 is a fair age as a guy, you know, to have a kid. I think well,
let's put it like this, right? Yeah. You became a father, the quote unquote unconventional way, again, according to society, or the society we came from. So how did you navigate that? You didn't have a ring on your finger, blah, blah, blah. How was that whole situation? And who was there for you during that time? Like, who could you lean on that helped you get through? Because I'm sure it must have been some sort of a difficult moment. Although you didn't probably care, but deep down you probably had that this is a bit tough.
Actually, I had a completely different experience than I thought I would. You know, my parents always spent their whole lives telling me, like, if you bring a kid home, like, that's the end of it. You know, Congolese moms, you'll kill me. Mom was like, you'll kill me if you come home with a kid. And I was like, come on. You know? And I remember, like, the first time I found out, I had to tell them. I was like, I have to tell them. And Michel, my best friend.
Good guy.
He was there for me during, like, the entire experience. Shout out Young Stark. You know, and he was like, okay, cool. I think we should tell the parents, but I think we should wait a little bit, you know, because I think I had found out a couple of weeks already. So we waited a bit to see if, like, we were sure we were going to push through with it. As soon as we decided at the 3-month mark that we were going to get ahead with the kid, I called my parents and I was like, listen, guys, like, we're old now. I don't want to beat around the bush. Someone's expecting. And, you know, they didn't say much. I could hear them crying in the background. But they were like, look, man, it's okay. You know, that's our grandchild. We want to try our best to be there for them. And the pregnancy was fine. And I think that was like the beginning of like the real tension between my parents and I. Because I think it had gotten to a point where they like had enough. Do you understand? Like, I've put them through quite a bit. I don't think it's too bad, but I think for a Congolese, it's a lot. You know, for a South African, like, yo, the angel. You know, you South Africans are naughty. Oh. But it was like, it was such it was so tense with him because I could see the clash. Because now it was just like, this is like their wits' end. Like, how much should they tolerate? Already you're in the clubs. Already you're outside. Already, Shama. Why do you now want to add a kid? But I feel like it was low-key one of the biggest blessings. And it took them a while to come around to that because they were too hyper-focused on all the people pressure. You know, I can't believe I'm saying this, thank God for COVID. You know what I mean? Because them being indoors made them realize, like, you know what, you're going to push away someone who currently has your only grandchild because of what people are going to say. Like, you know, and then I remember for my dad, we didn't talk for some time. And I remember I was with my kid and I was like, I just imagine how imperfect I am and how I don't have it figured out. And I'll never really, truly have it figured out. That means my dad probably never really had it figured out. He was just moving off of what he knew. And I'm not like any of his other kids. And he's not like anyone else I know. So how would we expect to work on a relationship coming with presets from other situations?
Yeah.
You know, and that time apart, like, you know, it was like a blessing for us, you know. And then one day, like, I phoned him like in the middle of the night. I was like, yo, Dad. We ended up having like a very long phone call, very emotional phone call, you know. First time I ever had an emotional conversation with my dad. But it made me see him as a human and it made him see me as a human.
Beautiful.
You know, and it was like what? Almost, yeah, it was 3 years ago, 3 years and something. And we have never even had a single argument since. That's why I remember when I was reaching out to I'm not in a point in life where I want any problems with my dad. Like, I respect that man. Yeah. You understand? He respects me as a man. There's things that he can't tell me to do as a man. But there are things that he doesn't have to tell me for me to do in order to respect him. Do you understand? That's number one, the person who gave me life. Number two, my spiritual mentor. Number three is actually just a dope guy. Like, he's actually really like a really cool guy. Like, I just spent hours on the phone with my dad just chuckling about like whatever. If you know my dad, you know that's a hilarious man, you know? And I think that my experience with him brought a level of humanity to him, you know? And I think I can attest to that. Like, it made him feel more human in a humbling way, because, you know, sometimes when you're a man of God, you forget that you're a human. That's why these men of God be doing nonsense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are you stepping on people? Yeah. My dad wasn't doing that, but I'm just saying, like, men of God, they get fueled by this God complex. You know what I mean? And I think that, like, this situation was a moment for God to humble the both of us in order to bring us back together. And it was necessary for the whole family, for like just a complete ease of tension, because there was a lot going on. And you know the saying, there can't be two bulls in one kraal. That's his kraal, bro. Currently it's his kraal. I can't disrespect him in his kraal, no matter what I say, even if I'm right. So long as I'm going against him, he will, you know, he will challenge me. And all those realizations came from being a dad, because my little boy, he still thinks he can challenge me. You know what I mean? Like, and I have to do things to remind him that, like, listen, brother, it doesn't work like that.
And I was going to ask, what did your experience with your dad teach you going forward for SJ? Which is now you answering that, yeah.
Yeah, kids are naughty. Like, you understand? Like, if my son looks exactly like me, his personality is exactly like me. So I can assume that, like, my naughtiness was exactly like his. So I can understand what my dad was experiencing. You would think that, oh my God, what a sweet kid, you know what I mean? But, like, every kid is a rascal. You understand? Running around, doing crazy things, you know? And you as a dad, your role is to bring them in. And, like, what my new relationship with my dad taught me was that, like, self-control is everything. You understand? In both our situations, a lack of self-control led things to escalate. And a lot of our dads, they lack it. You understand? Because they're hurting inside. They're carrying traumas and pains that they never talk about.
Never take it out, yeah.
You understand what I mean? And all they knew was like, you can imagine you coming from a war-torn country to a country that's just got over apartheid. You understand what I mean? Now you need to find money, you need to clothe people, you need to eat, you need to live, you need to whatever, and then you also need to listen to your wife. That's a lot. I'm not gonna lie.
And have a ministry as well. And
have a ministry.
Another topic and another.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Then your kids are coming, oh, Papa, did you see my? You're sitting there like,
it's too much.
It's a lot, you know? And we don't have self-control because we don't do like the inner work. And like, me and my dad are at a very good place because if you have a conversation with my dad right now, I think it's the maturest he's ever been. And it's the kindest he's ever been and the most humble he's ever been. Because he learned the lessons, you know, and as I learn with him, I learn with my son, you know. Because, for example, I'll tell you another incident. I was at my boy Elijah's house, Elijah Lubala, and our kids were swimming, you know, Micah, SJ. And, bro, we were gone for like 5 minutes. SJ decided he's going to try to take a floaty, right? But the pool's too deep. Reaches the floaty, misses it. Now he's drowning.
He's looking for air.
He's fetching it. Mike and I was trying to explain to one of the adults, like, SJ is sinking. SJ is sinking. Now this lady was like, what does that mean? And he's pointing back. He looks there. SJ is under the water, hands up. Do you understand what I mean? And that lady ran in there and took him out. 30 more seconds, I don't have a son. 50 more seconds, I don't have a son. And then we wonder why our dads are so upset, because you would crush his world if he lost you. He just doesn't know how to tell you that.
Yes, but let me even take a sip. That is so deep,
bro. And my boy was telling me, like, that are you mad that your son was about to drown, or are you mad that you were not there? I say both. And he was like, what is this trying to teach you? And I was like, that my world would end had I lost my son. And how it translated was I was about to go and beat him. How was he ever going to know that? He wasn't going to know that. Do you understand what I mean? So I went to tell him, I said, I'm going to talk to you nicely in the car. So I want to beat you in the car. You enjoy now. Then I had some time to think about it. I get in the car. I said, did you realize what you did? You know, we're driving home with Michelle. He's keeping quiet, like he's giving me an attitude. And then I said, SJ, I'm talking to you. He says, huh? I'm like, you don't realize what you just did? You almost died. What would you do if you died? He looks at me. I'm sure he's confused because he doesn't understand the concept of death. But I do.
Yeah.
You know? And I was just so angry at him because he doesn't understand what he was doing. He just tried to get a floaty and he realized he wasn't making it. Next thing, someone is there picking him out the water. He wasn't conceptualizing that he is dying. Right? But because I don't have maîtrise, I don't have self-control, right? I don't know how to channel that into a correct expression. You understand? Are you stupid? You almost died. You can't even process that. You know what I mean? And like, when I thought of that, I thought of a conversation I had with my dad after we had sorted things out, you know, how he was also coming to realize that like he was just shouting because he didn't know how to explain that if I lose my children, I'll lose my mind. He couldn't know how to tell you that. You understand? I'm sure that's the same for your dad. And most of the Congolese guys, you know, our age, with a dad who grew up in Congo, you know, with Kabila and those niggas, Mobutu, you know. Like, you understand? If you got a dad from that era, he's probably traumatized, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he probably had a very strict dad, if he even had a present dad.
Yeah.
And like, they don't know how to tell you that if you die, my whole world will end. So sometimes, like, forgive your dads. You know what I mean? Like, hear them out. It took me a while, you know, about 31 years to get to that point.
Jeez, bro. This is... Most of my questions I'm not even asking because you're just taking me on a journey, and thank you so much. And I want to touch on something because people close to you are now getting into it. Marriage, you were always out loud about, I don't want to get married, I want to have a kid. Where did that come from? And has it changed? And if it's changed, why? If it hasn't changed, why?
So I think the mistake I was doing, right, is I was processing other people's marital experiences and projecting it as what mine is going to be. And I was running away from the pain of a marriage ending. But the older I got, I realized that like that pain that you're avoiding, you can't avoid it. Do you understand what I mean? Because there's still pain and loneliness. A lot of people, there's more pain and loneliness than in having lost a partner. I see people who have no partners, they're like extremely miserable. And I was taking, like I told you, I was taking in too much, because you see, like I was blocking a lot of things out, but a few things I was clinging hard onto, you know? But I think it also boils down to that like youthful stubbornness I had, you know, where I wanted to be nothing like my parents, when I think that was the absolute wrong way, you know? I think my dad meeting my mom is the best thing that could have happened to him. And that's marriage for you. And, you know, I watched my best friend get married, you know, to Laura.
It was beautiful. We were there.
Very beautiful, you know, and like they're a perfect example of love in itself, you know.
Honestly.
Like the both of them are like, they're like best friends, you know.
Dude, it's so different. She's loud and he's like composed and it just works. Shout out, Laura.
It works, you know what I mean? And I was like, it worked because she's his person and he's her person. Like it doesn't matter, you know, how she is. He doesn't care.
Yep.
Understand? You can go and say, yo, Laura, but he doesn't care. You can go and say Michelle, but she doesn't care because that's her husband and that's his wife. You know, and it changed something in me, that wedding, you know? That it made me realize that like maybe it's coming from a place of fear and not a place of genuineness, you know? And I've been taking the time to work on that and to heal that part of me. And I think I think I could say like my perspective is changing, you know? I would like to get married.
Oh, nice.
I'd like to, you know, have a family, go home to my wife, you know? I think maybe also another part of it is like the space I work in just makes it a bit difficult to see things like that. Because you see a whole lot of stuff there. Things most people will never see, you know? And I can't move off of that, you understand? Because just because everyone also around me is having happy marriages doesn't guarantee me to have a happy marriage. The same way everyone around having bad marriages doesn't guarantee me to have bad marriages.
Exactly, yeah.
We have to stop taking in that like, you know what I mean? External pressure. Because you know what happens when, like, think of yourself as like a ball, right? When external, like when you fill up a ball with air, right? When it deflates, it's when that internal pressure goes out and external, do you understand, comes in. That's what you become. You don't hold your own structure when you're expecting the air to come from, like, you know, outside and you're not keeping it inside of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like a lot of people, like, they listen too much to what's going on around them, who's saying what. We're all individualized. Like, I could never marry your wife because I'm not you. And your wife, she can see me happy with someone. It doesn't mean that like if you now go and marry my wife, you will now be happy. It doesn't work like that. You understand? It doesn't work like that at all. And I think my perspective has changed, you know? I love the what I'm seeing, especially with like these young Congolese marriages. You understand? I'm loving the new dynamic and how like we're moving with love and intent and healing, you know? Our parents were loving from a place of trauma and they don't even realize that, a lot of them. Do you understand what I mean? I don't think a lot of us realize how stressful living in like a 1980s Congo must have been.
And then coming here early 90s, like most of our parents, early 90s, 1991.
Do you know what I mean?
Adapting
language barrier. There was no Duolingo.
Not at all.
There were no apps. Do you understand? They were fighting with their broken English. I'm going to taxi. They were saying that, you know what I mean? And they were pushing and they learned. Do you understand what I mean? My mom had to go learn English at school because she wasn't watching enough TV to process it. If you have a conversation with my mom, she's fully fluent in English.
Yeah.
You know? And like they had to go through a lot of like all these things. There was no Netflix where you have 1,000 movies available at your press of a finger. You can just sit there and learn a language. You know what I mean? There wasn't all this internet so that you could secure your income externally. Like you had to go out there, actually use your broken English and get a job. You understand? And span and provide for your kids. Do you understand what I mean? Like your parents did that until they learned English. But they didn't start going off there knowing exactly. They had to go to school.
Yeah.
I remember your mom was studying when I...
Yeah.
Do you understand? By the way, Rudy didn't tell you guys I was the, what do you call the flower boy at the parents' wedding.
Yeah.
Do you understand? I was like that cute one in the front, the one that they put there to be Beyonce.
Yo, crazy, man. Yeah, but honestly speaking, I see that, you know, you have become someone that has thought a lot.
Yes.
And that has gone through some, like a lot of stuff. Also something, UJ, in plain English, you didn't finish. How was that for you? And how is that for you?
I was wasting my time. Like, you know,
that answer. Your mindset is,
yeah, like,
you don't have that victim.
nah, I was wasting my time, you know. And my dad cut me off the year before because I started working in the class my last year of UJ, and UJ kind of screwed me over. They told me I'd finished my 2-3A subjects, and I had one left over, like 1-2A and 1-2B that I had to finish from the last year. I'd done all of that and completed. And then UJ told me I set up my degree wrong. I said, well, screw you guys, you know? And then my mom was like, no, just push. So I went to go find out. They told me, no, I have to do a minimum of 2 more years. I said, guys, I've already been here for like 4 or 5. Like, I can't understand, be studying here for 7 years, come out with a politics BA. I was like, nah, it's not going to work out. I was like, no ways. And my dad was like, listen, I'm only paying for 4 years of school. If you're going for the 5th one, good luck. And my mom and I, we put money together. Some money I got from the club, some money I got from her. We found someone who was going to pay our school fees because, you know, UJ has those subsidized programs. Yeah. Okay, did this guy not scam us? 18,000, poof.
And at that time, it's a big amount still.
It was a chunk of money. He took that money. And I think at that moment, it was just like the world speaking to me. It was literally like, well, there's your answer. Do you understand? Is it worth it? It's not worth it. Do you understand? It's not worth it. I dropped out and I said, I'm going to do something about it, you know? And I'm so grateful. I've done things that like people in corporate, you're not going to see anytime soon, you know?
Of course.
I've done things that corporate would have never done for me. Even if I was a banker, like I wouldn't have seen that. Do you understand what I mean? Like Groove has done things for me that like if I start listing things that Groove has taken out.
Maybe 5 things. Let's give a different narrative to that life. Quote unquote, that life.
I mean, like, it's helped my family out of quite a bit of debt, you know?
That's Groove, yeah.
That's Groove. Bought a car.
At that time when you posted it, we went crazy. Wow, Shama did that.
About to shock you guys with something crazy, you know? I'm just deciding whether or not it's viable. But I'm working on something more crazy. You know, my son is fully looked after from Groove, you know? You can speak to my son's mom. She doesn't struggle about finances, you know, it's the least of her worries. You know, I went on a whole Euro trip, fully funded by Groove. You know what I mean? Like, I was in Portugal, I was in France, like, no credit card, eh?
Yeah.
Like, just straight cash.
Let's go.
You know what I mean? Like, those are blessings, man. You know, when I was walking down Praia de Rocha. Yeah, you guys don't know that one.
You can tell us.
It's a beach in Portimao. Portimao is like a party city there in Portugal. And I was so grateful. I was like, you know what? God has really done things for me in a place where I didn't expect grace and favor. But if you look at my life, you look at my trajectory, it can only be grace and favor. Like the things that have happened for me, it's not by my own works, you know. I mean, I am good at what I do, but yo, Rudy, you know, the positions I've been in, the way I've grown in this space, there's a favor on my life. Do you understand what I mean? Like the things I do, yo, bro, I'm telling you, it's more than just a skill. Sometimes I sit there and you know what? I feel like, yo, I didn't do this properly. And then the turnout will be insane. Do you understand what I mean? And then I remember someone was criticizing me because I said I pray before my grooves.
Why? That person's a hater. No offense.
Yeah, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I pray for the things I do. You know what I mean? And my trajectory is my trajectory. Like people will act like, yeah, you're praying for groove, but do you understand? You're not living a life appeasing to the word, appeasing to God anyways. So what does it matter if I work at groove? It's not like you making it into heaven if you want to go that route.
Let's go.
Do you understand? People are extremely judgmental like that. And when you read the Bible, like it really asks us to like, just focus on yourself. Do you understand what I mean? You can call someone out a couple of times, but ultimately it's them. You understand? You don't dictate people's lives. The most you can do is distance yourself from them, but don't make them your problem.
Talking about God, you grew up in a Christian household, just like myself. And how was that whole experience for you then? And now, how is it for you now?
I think growing up with it was it was more like practice. And what we're living now is more like in-game. You know, there's a certain grace and protection and favor that comes when you're in the house of your parents. And then when you move out, that grace lifts because it's time for you to cover your own house and pray for your own. Do you understand? And like when you're in that space, you deal with like more realities. And I mean, I'm extremely grateful to my parents for it, because if I didn't have the word of God now, I don't know where my mental health would be. You understand? Because it's in the word of God that I found my peace. And I didn't find it because no one told me to. I'm just like, I want to start reading. And I'm going to start reading the word of God. And I started reading the word of God, and I understood why my parents wanted me to read this thing. But like everyone needs to get to that point where you understand it, because no one is going to tell you anything. In fact, I say for everybody who feels like you're drifting away from God, that is the best place to be in. If you feel like God is quiet, if you feel like, you know, you can't hear any of that, that is the perfect place to be in, because that is what is going to determine whether you really want it or not. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you feel like God is quiet, what are you doing about it? Do you understand what I mean? Are you reading your word? Are you praying? Do you understand what I mean? Moments like that should lead you to God. Even if you say, you know what, like when people tell me like, yo, I decided to stop going to church, I say, why? You know, they say, it's not for me. I say, okay, brilliant. What is for you? Do you understand what I mean? The issue isn't in, like, it's that you're not looking. If you say like, yo, no, I don't want this God thing, well, what is it that you want? Because I promise you, in looking for that, you will find God. You understand? When you say, I don't want God.
Interesting, yeah.
I don't want God. I want none of that. You understand? In you searching for everything around, even if it takes you 10 years, it will bring you right back to God. And that's where the word of God says that raise your kids in the way of the Lord, and they shall never depart from it.
Beautiful.
So, like, people shouldn't, like, don't force people. I remember, like, you know, my best friend, there was a time he gave up on church. He was like, I don't want to go to church. I want to believe this. I said, bro, our parents are pastors. He's like, no, it's not for me. It's not for me. I said, okay, no problem. All I did was pray for him. I said, you know what, God, I can't actually convince this old. He's just my best friend. Himself, he came to me. He almost died. They almost hijacked him. Right? And a cop saw him hand-tied. And he looked back, and the cop pressed the trigger, and the gun jammed. Because she thought he was the robber, because he had got hijacked in his own whip. And the gun jammed, because he was praying. He was praying like, God, please, this is crazy. They left him in a bush. the cops found him. They thought he was trying to tamper with some stuff. He was trying to take away the things that the robbers tied his hands with. And then you sit there and he was just like, no, his God is real.
Yeah.
And I said, praise God. Because that's it. That's the entire journey. People like to be the saviors in people's stories. You're not the savior. There's one
Only
savior.
one, yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? All you can do is pray for people and be there for them. Do you understand? Like that thing of trying to save people, that's not your journey. That's how a lot of people chase people out of the church. So a lot of people, do you understand what I mean? Because God said he'll make us fisher of men. Do you understand what I mean? Like you're just supposed to go and get them hooked, let them do the rest. Just saying you want to now fry the fish, you want to spice it, make it into a, do you understand, hake, baby potatoes, mash. And God is like, that's not what I'm asking from you. You understand? You just be the messenger. And for me, in this industry, I wanted to be a pillar of light. You understand? Like someone that people can say, you know what, this place is dark, but at least there's people like this guy.
Yeah.
And I think to some extent I have, you know. Not everyone's going to like me. Do you understand? Not everyone's going to like me. And that's okay. I'm very direct as well. But the people who know me and the people who work with me will know that like I've done a lot to change people's lives. And there's a lot that this industry cannot do to me because by character, I'm just not raised like that. You understand? I'm not a shekula. I'm not a scammer. I pay people, you know? And I look after people. Instead, I take on people like siblings. And that's it. You know, you look after God's people and like...
God looks after you.
Bro.
I've got 3 questions I want to ask you. Any short answers.
Okay.
If your life was a book, what would the chapters be called?
The chapters?
Or let's do this. What title would you give to the book of your life?
Don't give up on me yet.
Okay. And then what chapter are you in now in that same book?
Give.
And what chapter are you preparing for?
Up.
Wow. Nice. And lastly, to all the moms and dads that we grew up with and the people we went to Sunday school with and stuff, if they're all wondering about you, what would you tell them today? Like, how is Shama? Is he okay? Where is he at? What is he doing? What would you tell them? Because they probably will watch.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I think I wouldn't even know what to say, you know, because I don't really think about it like that. I guess like when I start personalizing like who's in my life and who's not, you might get touched for nothing. So I guess I don't think about it like that. But for me to just let them know I'm okay, you know, I'm okay. Don't follow my path. Don't be edgy. You understand? You're not me. Like now you're going to say, yo, I want to be a nightclub promoter like Shama. I know some of you have done that. You know, your parents have gone complaining to my parents. Okay. Like, let's stop all that. If I can only inspire you is to follow your passion aggressively. Do you understand? And then we can all meet one day. Do you understand? Like, if you all push your passions, we will all link, I promise you. Like, if you're pushing your thing and you're doing your thing, greats always meet. Greats always meet. Like, if you're doing something, you got motion, you will encounter people with motion. So don't do that Congolese thing of not having motion and then you upset that other people have motion. Because when I take out my Ferrari, don't tell people Nasimbi Kisi. You know what I mean? Don't tell people, oh, now I've touched witchcraft because now you see me in a Ferrari. So, you know, like, if you see me outside, you know, greet some of you. I'm not going to remember you directly. You know, it's been a while. I haven't seen some of them in like 20 years.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't think you should assume that somehow and like, I don't think I've ever done that to someone when they came to greet me and I rolled my eyes at them. That's crazy business. But a lot of people treat me like that. Like, I would, you know, so if you see me, say hi. And yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Shama, man, I really appreciate this conversation. It reminds us that life is not always linear. You know, sometimes people expect you to follow a certain path, live a certain way, or become a certain person. But the truth is that each of us have our own story to write. We've spoken about entrepreneurship, about fatherhood, growth, healing, and navigating life on your own terms. And I think that's something a lot of people watching will resonate with, especially that part about healing and restoration. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share the story with you. Thank you for being open.
No problem.
Thank you for sharing your journey, and thank you for joining us today. To everyone watching, this has been another conversation of In Conversation with Rudy Samuel featuring Chama. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you like, subscribe. It's free, and it helps the channel grow. We're almost at 4,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for your love and your support. My name is Rudy Samuel, and I'm signing all the way out.